A brand new Superman trailer debuted today, and whoo, whoo. Hello, YouTube. Axioman here once again. And if you've noticed, I made a change of shirt from the intro to this. While I am going to give you my thoughts and a general reaction of what I thought of the new Superman trailer by James Gunn, I'm wearing this shirt specifically because this was one of James Gunn's early films called Super. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it. I'm going to talk about more James Gunn things than anything else because this is going to launch a series of films into a new DC universe helmed by James Gunn. So I thought I'd take a different approach to the reactions and thoughts. There's a lot of videos out there. There's a lot of people making reaction videos and loving it. I'm loving them loving it because I love just joining in on the joy and the excitement, not just because it's something to share, but because it was good in my opinion. Man, I am blown away from what I saw. And well, let's just get into it. So I like the teaser trailer. I like the first trailer, and now I'm once again in love with the brand new trailer. The interview style that they did at the beginning between Lois Lane and Superman, not Clark Kent, but Superman, uh, was amazing because as she was asking him questions, they're panning out to the events that she's describing, and it's just the color scheme, bright, bright colors, the yellows and the reds and the blues. My favorite line of the entire trailer was when Superman says, "Hey, buddy, eyes up here." Boom, and he just flies. The delivery of that line is such. It's so Superman. That is Superman in the middle of battle. It's just still having that the sense of a Boy Scout, and he is a symbol of hope. And the color scheme, as I mentioned, does that. It brightens up, right? It's bright. One of the critiques I had about the Snyder take on Superman is that it was, it was the somber colors, and the darkness to it. Not necessarily. Well, yeah, it had tones of darkness as far as storytelling tone, but the color scheme in the film, the way he filmed it, was just very dark. I mean, it fits things like Watchmen and the movie 300, but it just never fit his Superman, his Man of Steel, in my opinion. This feels bright. This gives you, I'm going to keep saying this. This is one word I'm going to repeat many times, and that is the feeling. One thing that I never got from the Snyderverse Superman, and I am not in any way saying that, it was bad, it was good. I like some things. I didn't like a lot of things. But what I never got was the feeling that this was Superman. Henry Cavill, amazing. The suit. I like the texture of the way they did the suit. I mean, there were things that just hit, but there were so many other things that just didn't feel like Superman. And I get it; he was doing his own rendition of Superman, but also you have to understand that he was launching a new universe, the DCEU, respectfully. So when you're trying to lay a foundation, in my opinion, maybe don't start with a deconstruction of your flagship character. I know Batman is right neck and neck with being the flagship character, but it's always Superman. And on that note, Superman has always been the first comic book hero. Joel Schuster, Jerry Siegel. I hope I didn't butcher those names. This whole video is like he doesn't know what he's talking about. He messed up the names of the creators. Jerry Siegel and Joel Schuster. They were the ones that created this and launched the American comic book as we know it today. Superman is the first superhero ever. So you know, to launch a new universe and to use your flagship character as a deconstructed version of himself, it hit with a lot of people. Don't get me wrong, but it also was very divisive. Anybody can argue with me about that, but we're just going to argue with what we liked and we didn't like. But the fact that it was divisive is kind of not an arguing point because it really was. But back on point, uh, it's the feeling. I'm watching this trailer and I'm getting the feeling. This is Superman. From the musical score, I mean, I love Hans Zimmer. I know I keep making references to the Snyderverse. The only reason I'm doing that, ladies and gents, is because that was the last Superman that we got. That was the last cinematic Superman we got. So I'm not trying to do this whole, Gunn versus Snyder. No, it's just that that was the last cinematic Superman we got. So Hans Zimmer, love it. And when he first takes flight, Henry Cavill as Superman, it's epic. That musical score is amazing. But once again, for some reason, it just didn't feel Superman-esque. I can't explain it. I know some people are like, "Well, what do you mean?" I don't know what I mean. It's just it was a gut feeling. It's just this thing. And when I saw this trailer, along with the last one, it just feels like Superman. And it's not just the musical scores, everything I've mentioned, but as I'm watching it from the dialogue, his general just demeanor, the musical score as it builds up, the dun, 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 oh, I get chills. I got chills just singing it very badly myself right now. Can you imagine me watching the trailer? I was beside myself, choked up at the end. I was like, I actually did, just because once again, the feeling, like it's so just instinctually is probably a wrong word, but it just feels like Superman. I love it. I am loving it. And as far as the trailer breakdown, I'm not going to do that. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there's a lot of people out there doing trailer breakdowns, uh, and I maybe one day I will do it kind of like the way they do it. But for now, this is just my thoughts. Go check out, like Angry Joe. There's so many out there that are awesome. They're amazing. And Angry Joe's actually a huge Superman fan. I've been watching his channel for years. Uh, but what I did want to talk about is James Gunn. James Gunn, the guy who's going to be running this whole new universe. Now, apparently, I've been watching James Gunn for years, and I didn't even know it. Hence the shirt. So, for anybody here that remembers back in the days before streaming and apps and smart TVs, we were paying for cable. We're paying for cable television, and one of the channels, if you scroll through enough of the channels, you'd eventually get to the HBO section, the Cinemax, the Showtime, and all the premium channels that you had to pay extra for. And then at the very bottom of that was always a channel that read IFC. And when you got there, you didn't get a prompt saying like, you must pay for this or else, you peasant. It would pop on. Like the channel worked. And you could watch things. You can't come to find out that IFC stood for the Independent Film Channel. So that's why it was free, because new artists or up and coming artists, or maybe artists that were already established in the business, would create indie films, independent films, and put them on that channel. That was the way we saw some of the creative works of these people. That was when I encountered the movie Super. It was on the IFC, Independent Film Channel. Little did I know that I was watching a younger version of James Gunn at the time. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm referring to. If you haven't, let me describe it without giving anything away. It's the most effed up film I've ever seen in the best way possible. it's it's outrageous. There's a lot of absurdity to it, and yet it works. It's called Super. This is one of the lines in the movie. You must watch it in order to understand what this means. Shut up, crime. One of the most hilarious lines in the whole movie. I mean, arguably film history. That's a bold statement. But we are talking about James Gunn here. So even though it's so kind of outlandish in its own right, it has a lot of heart to it. Even the ending shouldn't end the way it does, and yet it packs such an emotional punch on certain levels that you're like, what did I just watch? And I remember loving the film when I first saw it, never knowing that years later this same James Gunn guy was going to be hired by Marvel and do the Guardians of the Galaxy, a movie that I saw multiple times in the theaters. One of my favorite top 3 MCU films. It's Iron Man, Guardians, and Winter Soldier. Not in that particular order, but those are my top 3. Side note. So I was already liking James Gunn before I even knew who James Gunn was. And because that movie, in rewatching it just recently, I could see the same elements that he introduced in the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy and some of his other films, like the Suicide Squad. I almost had a brain fart there. The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker and things like that. You see that in Super. You see where it was leading. Nobody could predict the future, but it's all there. And on that note, because I just kind of read off his resume, I have a confession to make. I haven't seen Peacemaker yet. I'm actually going to watch it and do videos on it as I catch up with everyone else that has already seen it. So, especially considering the fact that season 2, right around the corner. So, I've heard nothing but good things. Since I am a fan of his work, I don't know why I haven't watched it. I'm such a procrastinator. My friends who know me, they're laughing at this part. They're not laughing, they're doing this. They're just judging me right now in this part of my video. Yes, I am. Big, fat procrastinator. I keep putting it off, haven't seen it yet, but I'm about to, especially after this trailer. In James Gunn, we trust at this point or at any point. So I got to get to it. One thing I've noticed from the body of work of director James Gunn is his management of not only a variety of team members, a variety of different characters, but also working with unknowns. I'm a huge comic book reader and collector. I never read Guardians of the Galaxy. Honestly, so when I saw that coming up in the slate back when Guardians was being released, I was like, okay, I'll watch it because it's part of the larger universe, cinematic universe. I didn't know what to expect. Went to go watch it. Blown away. We all know at this point what he did with the soundtrack and intermingling it with part of the storytelling. Just genius. Some of this is so obvious, and yet it takes a certain artist, storyteller, writer to tell it the way that it's absorbed in this mind blowing, entertaining, and heartfelt way. And he does that so well. I mean, there's great directors out there that do the same thing just in different tones and different ways, like Christopher Nolan and Ryan Coogler, and I mean, the list goes on. I mean, I could keep going, but these are the ones that are current. I'm not going to go into the Spielbergs and the, although awesome in their own right. But there you go. He has a way of telling a story where, while he may introduce humor, it's well introduced in the scenes. It doesn't take away from a scene, although he's had a few hiccups in my opinion. But for the most part, he's delivered very well on scenes, on point. Where there's levity, levity's thrown in as opposed to humor, which are two different things. And then sometimes he throws in a gag. In my opinion, those are 3 different levels of humor. There's gags, there's funny, and then there's levity. And the man knows how to just juggle the 3 concepts of that, in my opinion. And I can't wait to see how he does Superman. And it's because he's able to do these things. I'm excited because he's taking the flagship character, Superman, well known. Well, who doesn't know who Superman is in this planet? But then he's also taking other characters. I mean, Lex Luthor, of course, another well-known character. But then there's Hawk Girl. There's Guy Gardner, Green Lantern. There's Mr. Terrific. There's just so many obscure characters. Now, to comic book readers, especially Superman fans, you're going to be able to just list them off, right? Everyone that you saw in the trailer. Not everyone can do that. The casual viewer is not going to be able to recognize who all these people are. And some might argue that there's way too many characters. Well, that's why James Gunn is the right man for the job, because he's shown us that he can do that. It's not just this whole like, oh, this guy's just in love with James Gunn. No, his body of work speaks for itself. That's what it is. It's a resume that we can see with our eyes and experience, just in theaters, at home, with friends and family. We've seen it, and in my opinion, he's delivered. So that's where my statement comes from. I'm excited to see what he's going to do with the flagship character, such a well-known figure, and also introduce all these different factions to it. He's the perfect guy for the job. There's others out there like the Russo brothers that know how to manage so many actors and personalities, and then also characters within the film. James Gunn is one of those guys, and I think he's going to knock it out of the ballpark according to what I've seen so far. And I'll end this video with this. The very first time I was ever introduced into Superman was I was a young boy, and we went to a family barbecue. I didn't know these people, friends of my or distant cousins of my mother and father. They just so happened to be playing Richard Donner Superman on their TV. And this was like one of these 10,000-pound TVs, the old school 80s TVs. And I was just zombified. I couldn't peel my eyes off what I was watching. I was watching a man fly. Amazing. In this movie, James Gunn does the same thing kind of, but he says, look up. Well done, sir. To capture the essence of that feeling, the Richard Donner feeling. You'll believe a man can fly. And now it's like, look up in the sky. There's a bird. There's a plane. I mean, it's just a short version of that famous line. The very first Superman toy I ever got was this little plastic Superman that his cape kind of clipped onto his neck. It was like a little clip-on thing that you could just take off and then put on. And I used to like taking it off and on. And then when it was on, it flapped and just run around with Superman, with the wonky little, because they didn't make toys that well back then, or maybe they made them better than they do now. I don't know. I would argue one way and the other. I'm a child of the 80s, ladies and gents. So that was my first introduction, and the feeling that I got in watching Superman back then when I was a young boy, I got watching these trailers. That's why I'm just super excited. So excited that I don't have a Superman cape. So I went to go grab my USA soccer jersey because it's red and there's some blue on it. I mean, I put it on I did this whole number as I was watching it for the fifth time, and I was like running around doing this whole number. I was like, I was doing these things. I need to get me a cape. I need to get me a Superman cape now. That's it. I mean, yeah, I'm going to do the tagline, collect what you love what you collect. I am way too excited. I've had my adrenaline levels are through the roof. Let's just end this now.